Hello everyone, I'm Sylvie Steinbach and welcome to the Esoteric Academia. It is our official first video and it is a Karmic Astrology about Donald Trump, President of the United States. And I am going to be approaching this particular session with 3 parts, as I usually do during a private session. The first part will be about the previous life on record coming out of this particular natal chart. It is what we call past life. It is the karma, which means whatever is in the luggage that this person has taken with him for this incarnation. And we will look into what is in the luggage. And the second part will be going into his life purpose, which means the impulse, the reason, the magnet that pulled this soul to want to come in this particular frequency to try to evolve on a particular topic, and we will look at that. Before we go and transit into the main piece of resistance, which is the current life, which is what the soul has designed for its evolution, and whatever was the big outline of that life that was presented to the soul that triggered the incarnation. So it is a lengthy reading, so bear with me. I will make 3 distinctive parts, so you can always pause, come back to it at your leisure. But it is part of a process that is significant when you do this kind of session, because once you start to channel the information, it's really difficult to stop and continue on another day. So, officially, Mr. Trump was born June 14th, 1946 at 10:54 a.m. in Queens, New York. So this is his chart right there, and I will include that in the video at the end in a separate section, so you can always look at it. This is a very interesting person because, you know, a lot of people like to know what's your sun sign, what's your moon sign, what's your rising. So I'm just going to entertain you for a few minutes. This is a man who is obviously a Gemini, and his sun is at 22 degrees in Gemini, but he's a rising sign Leo. And what is interesting about his rising sign, it is at the end of the Leo, at exactly 29 degrees, 56 minutes. For those people that are watching that are not really savvy about how a natal chart functions, it's basically the map of the constellation from the Virgo to the Leo, and it is each sign lasts 30 degrees, so that when the time you finish the 12th sign, you have a full circle of 360 degrees. So in this case, having a rising sign that is finishing at 29 degrees and 56 minutes, it means that the person is coming back to complete a process that was already explored. So this may be his last experience of that nature, according to what normally is being said about having a rising sign at 29 degrees. This is usually an ending. That's why you're at the end of the sign. What is also interesting is the moon. The moon is at 21 degrees in Sagittarius. So when you have people who are Sun Gemini, rising Leo, moon in Sag, they are usually very quick to figure out how they work, which means that it doesn't take them long after incarnation, after birth, to know what they are capable of doing. And with this particular combination, of not only air and fire, but also with the idea that you have a rising that is in Leo, which is a very strong sign, and then you have the moon in Sag. It gives you someone who really has a very good view on the global scale about where he's at. It's kind of like people who have the talent in finding themselves. They know exactly where in the map they are, and they know exactly how the map looks like. So they kind of have a global view or exactly where they're at and where they need to go. And it probably was very clear to him quickly what he could do and what his abilities were. I'm not going to go into psychology in this particular type of session, but this is showing me that this is someone who got going very early in life. So, as I explained in the previous video, past life is a fascinating thing. We do not have technically proof that what I'm going to say is accurate. But I would say that there are signs in this current life of whatever past life I'm going to pick up on. Sometimes people have certain type of taste. They have certain type of phobias. They have certain desires. And it may have nothing to do with their upbringing, nothing to do with their parents, nothing to do with genetics. Where is that coming from? So in this case, we're going to look into what his previous life was. And what I will say is this man past life was in a different country. So wherever it was the previous life that he's using on record to fulfill this lifetime, it was not in the United States of America. It was somewhere else, a different continent. The other thing is, this person was very likely a female and not a male. So we may have here an incarnation where Donald Trump was a female in the previous life, was born in another country, more specifically another continent. And what I feel is that this was someone who has had control over its environment. So this was a woman who had some form of influence in its locality, in its environment. The other thing is they show a person that was born and was able to accumulate wealth. This is showing as a person who not only may have been taught how to, but also somebody who was born in a place where revenues, making money, was already very well established. So usually people who inherit a certain savoir-faire or a certain, sometimes it's a family business, or sometimes it has to deal with inheriting a particular position in life thanks to your parents. Sounds familiar, but in some ways, in the first part of our lives, we repeat certain element of our previous life because this is something that is instinctive. We repeat what we have mastered, or we repeat what is familiar. And what is familiar is this person had a previous life where it had control over its environment, but was born into an environment that was well-to-do, that had everything already taken care of in terms of needs and accomplishment, but in her lifetime, because in this case it was a woman, in her lifetime was able to accumulate even more. And so this is very fascinating because they show eventually this person become a figure that people are looking up to, a personage that is embodying a person of power. This was already part of the memory that this soul had. The other interesting part of its past life is the concept of being in a position where you dictate or you are followed or you have a leadership position. So this means that this person can tell others what to do. This could be somebody who's running a company. If you run a company, you tell your employees what to do. If you are running a large estate, you will tell your servants what to do. So if we are looking at a previous lifetime that is historically speaking in our past, this may not have anything to do with a paying job or having income. It could be revenues out of transaction and selling and harvesting, selling the harvest, receiving taxes from people who are using your land, running a household where you have 100 domestic people working for you to maintain that household. So you can see the extension in which way we can look into having such an influence that people look up to you. So it's clear to me that this woman, this foreign-based woman, had not only an influence that was significant right from the start, which means that she was either born in an affluent family or she was born in a status that was guaranteeing her income, revenues, and ultimately either a title or a position in life where people will have to look up to her, and she will have the ability to tell others what they should do. And there were here an agreement that it was okay to tell them what to do, that the people that were subject to her influence had agreed to have that person be in a position to tell them that. So it's very interesting that we have a past life that seemed to be already well set, and right from the beginning, in terms of needs, in terms of having your needs taken care of. You do not have to worry about what you're going to do for a living. You don't have to fight to make money. You just have to make sure that what you are receiving, you grow it further and not liquidate it or not waste it. But even that, this is a free will in a situation where you can waste your resources. It's a choice that a person can do. You can be given great gift and you can make them work for you and for others, or you can make them work for you to the detriment of others, or you can basically waste them and do nothing with them, or use them for really bad negative outcome. That's our free will. In this case, it doesn't say what this person did with that. What it tells us is that the capacity for this person to receive what it needs based on its relationship with others, that it is contractual and it is agreement, that it is by law, is very interesting. So in this case, we can look at it as, okay, so what does it mean? Does it mean that this person was born in an affluent family and was given a title, or was able to move up the social ladder because it had a privileged upbringing that was guaranteeing this individual not only revenues, income, but that person managed to continue to grow that startup, that those benefits, sorry, and in a way where it really got bigger and the status of this person got higher. So this is a very fascinating past life connection here, because it tells us that Mr. Trump had a previous life where, as a woman, he was able to be born in a place where he had already his life path set for him. He didn't have to worry about having his needs met, but he shows that he was able to accomplish one big thing. He was able to increase its original influence and its original wealth. There is an indication here that his influence grew much bigger, to a point where people were looking up to him and really accepting his authority based on the increase of the wealth that seemed to be the foundation for the increase of the power. So we have here a past life that feels very familiar, because we know this man today and how far he went, that he may have had already experienced that ascension, and be able to say that probably, very likely, in the course of the first part of his life, if we have a 80-year lifespan, that in the first 30, 35, 40 years of his life, at some point, that ambition of having power and be able to have that control over others was the drive of this person need to make money, and money was only to be able to increase his power. It was instinctive, it was ingrained in him, but the soul that habitated this body in this family had already an experience in doing that previously. Sorry. So we have here a very interesting repetition of a previous lifetime that was done very successfully. And I think that most likely this individual have got so powerful that maybe there were a title attached to it. I don't pick up a timeline that is close contemporary in terms of previous incarnation. I feel it's much older than that. Maybe European first 1,000, maybe first 1,400 years of European history, 0 BC to 1400. I really feel somebody was very powerful, female that ended up either be able to govern a province, maybe someone who had a noble title, that the noble title may have been upgraded over a lifetime, prince to queen, princess to queen, you know, different kind of rank in nobility, that this person at some point ruled over her estate or her province or her kingdom or her country. But to me, that's how powerful that previous life experience feels like. So the question for our second part is, what prompted that soul to want to come back? What was the purpose of the incarnation today? And we'll gather that to understand a little bit better what the soul is trying to accomplish at this point. So we will now tackle our second part of Mr. Trump natal chart, Karmic Astrology. So now let's move on to Donald Trump's life purpose. Why did he come in this lifetime? What is he working on? And what he's trying to accomplish. So, interesting enough, he chose to be a male in this lifetime. In our previous life, we know that he was a woman. Well, now, he chose to manifest the archetype of the male. And what I mean by that is the male that is dominant, charismatic, who wants to reach the top of the ladder socially and also professionally. So that's exactly what he decided to work on. But it was not meant to be through a simple ladder of ascension. It was out of unexpected moves, change of careers, different kind of opportunities. So it means that he came to go as far as he could go in terms of social recognition by sizing the moment, by going after what was available. So it's like basically a fox who is waiting for food based on what comes in front of him. And if it can be eaten, the fox will jump on it. This is what he decided to accomplish. That he succeeded in his lifetime or not, we don't know yet. Because remember, whatever I'm talking about today in this video will have been said the same way if he was just a baby, 6 months old, or if he was 40 years old. I mean, obviously he's older. So we know what he has already accomplished. But I want you to keep an open mind that this is a session that covers a lifetime regardless of when you do the session. Nothing here will change as the individual mature. It's just that certain events or certain situation will have come to pass later in life or in the early part of life. So therefore, if the individual is doing a karmic astrology late in their 60s, 70s, they will be able to validate the session because most other things that will come up will be in their past. So, how is he going to be accomplishing his life purpose? Well, this is showing that he's going to use his network. He's going to use his social circle. He's going to use his ability to negotiate, to speak, his ability to talk his way through different type of individuals, socially different. And with his charisma, his masculine energy, he will try to utilize that network and find the opportunities that he needs. So we know that he is aiming for the top of the social ladder. What is our social ladder today? You can be famous, very wealthy. You can be a leader by being a CEO of a very accomplished company, billion-dollar company, or you can be a leader of a political party. Either way, we're talking about that kind of accomplishment. We are not talking about being first in the classroom. We're not talking about winning the Olympics. It will not be considered being the top of the ladder. And we're not talking about somebody who will have a successful business. We are talking about the highest level of success per our society standards of this lifetime. So now we're going to go over our big reveal, which is what has been shown to the soul to prompt it to incarnate, because obviously this was a male, a boy, and this was what the soul was coming from, a previous life of a woman that was born in a very wealthy or well-to-do environment with possibly a certain social standing, who was able in her lifetime to grow in wealth and in status to a point where she may have come to reach a certain prestigious title or social standing, but apparently this soul came back to work and to move it one step higher, but with a masculine energy. So we're going to look at what would have been the career format of baby Donald Trump. What I mean by that is, because we are talking of a man who is now older, and therefore we know what he has accomplished so far. When I do a reading, I don't know who I'm dealing with. I don't know where this person come from. I don't know what they do for a living. So I'm going to do this reading as if I don't know who this person is. So I'm going with the motion of what I am normally doing in a private session. So the career situation that is shown here, already it's telling me that this individual will be very successful because of his ability to negotiate and to use his social network. And the accomplishment that is going to be done here will allow him to attract not only men, but women to want to support him, and women who are going to be giving him the wisdom and sometimes the knowledge that he needs to find those opportunities to jump onto what is going to give him a greater social status. I would have said to the mother of Donald Trump that most likely her boy will have his hands on multiple forms of work, that he will not just have one business or one trade, because an opportunist is somebody who basically will jump on anything that will profit. And so if we look at his abilities working with others, either as a boss or an employee, what it shows here is that he prefers to be the smarter person in the room. This is basically an indication here that this man will master any media type of communication very quickly. That means that he will be eager to be taught how to advertise, how to write efficiently, how to use video, audio to advance his agenda. And he will not have a plan. What he will only do is utilize the art of communicating to the masses or to his audience in ways that makes them think he has the experience and he can do the gig. And so I believe that he will attract a certain type of woman, for example, in his social circle, who are looking at him either as a father figure or as someone who knows more than they do. And he will utilize a certain type of female audience to again grow his agenda. And he will not do well as an employee. Of course, it will be better for him to be the boss. He will have a temptation to hire women employees if he thinks that the female employees are smart and respect him. Then you will have no problem to basically have a workforce that can be by majority females. What he will look at in his social circle as far as men are concerned, he will look for either people who know more than he does and basically rally them as if they were buddies so that they share their knowledge, or they are willing to help him with their knowledge, but they can't override his authority. So that's a little bit of psychology here, but that would have explained to his mother that makes him a bad employee altogether. And that if he is born into a family that has businesses already, he probably will learn from an older male. It could be a father, an uncle. He will find that kind of experienced male to tutor him, but very quickly he will want to do his own thing, and he will be difficult to control because ultimately he wants to be the boss. And he wants to be kind of the maverick, like, I'm going to do something. I've never done it before, but it's okay. I'm going to do it. Sounds like it's a great deal. Let me hire the people I need. Let me get some friends of friends to help me out, and they will make it happen for me. And that's the way I would have said to his mom that he will become very successful at. And I automatically look at his financial situation. This, again, is an indication that he will make a lot of money using that kind of networking, and also with speculation. Speculation means that you invest with the idea that you are investing in the market, and you are gambling on the fact that your investment will go up to market later on or above market, and you probably will sell it. So there is an idea of speculation. This is not a man who does want to work alone. This is a man who can do a lot of deals with partners. Therefore, it could be investors, partners having shares in the business. He's not afraid of that. Partnership is perfectly fine as long as he has partners that like speculation the same way he does, and also trust his instinct, because again, he wants to be the boss. So Everything has to be about trusting his instinct. Second is, he will be so successful that he will again appear, remember the previous life, appear as an authority in some strange way into the art of making money. And he will take on that role. Let me teach you how I make money. I know how to make money. So at some point, he may decide to consult, tutor, promote classes where he's teaching what he believed made him successful for a fee. Meaning that this is not education for the sake of education, it's education for profit. So everything is turned into a money making. It does not matter as long as it's centered around his ascension, how he made more money than what he got started with. Now, there is another form of money which is passive income. So this money that you initially invested in some project and the project continued to pay you over and over and over. In passive income, we have, for example, collecting rents, if you are a landlord. We have royalties if you have books, for example, you wrote. So in this area of money, what he shows me is he has a lot of hidden assets that were actually either very creative in the way they were done, which means generating things that made him money over and over, but it's not something that people can automatically see. And that could mean that he has had, he may have given loans to people and therefore he's getting interest out of it, but nobody knows that he has given those loans. Some of those things can be shares, investment in companies that he has that nobody knows he's involved with. There's a certain form of secrecy in his asset that can be sometimes construed as, well, he is doing all this because his investment were too creative and maybe that will get him in trouble. Possibly, but then again, you know, everything that is in the United States that is usually ways to creatively make money or save money, there's a lot of gray zone in that area. So it could have been that this was perfectly legal to do it, but it could be ethically not that good, for example. Regardless, a lot of his passive income are not known by people who are not really close to him, or people who did not work on those deals. So, does it mean that this is a man that is motivated by money? Yes, but he cares more about his ascension and how people perceive him than really how much money really is coming into his accounts. There's a reality about money, and there is the perception that he wants to give to others, to the outside world, about really how he made that money. So that I believe means that he wants people to trust him that he made money a certain way, when most likely there are a lot of this money that have been done in a very different way. Now, would I say that to his mother? Probably not that way. I prefer to explain it on YouTube in that fashion, because I'm dealing with people who have no vested interest in him. But probably with his mom, I would have approached it by saying that he will have a very crafty way of dealing with money, and there will always be the social persona of a certain way of being wealthy and successful, and then there will be a private side of him where the money will be made very differently. And it's done on purpose. It's not an accident. It's done that way. So once we have established the fact that this man will never be having a money issue or money problem, which means that he will never be out of money. There's always going to be a way for him to get an income. Then we can look at his abilities to communicate. And what they show here is he knows how to charm people. And he knows how to be actually very, he knows how to bewitch his audience. And particularly what is interesting is he can show that he cares. He has a way to demonstrate that he does care. And at the same time, he will do that with maybe some family members, maybe some women that are important to him, maybe some mentors or people that he respects a lot, right? This is a person that will not speak too much about how much he cares, but he will really find a way to charm his ways. And I find that very fascinating because we have not seen that side of him much as a president. But I believe it was there, it's still there, and it has been used for his interest. His creativity is, this is not a man full of imagination. That's not his thing. He's not a creative person. His creativity is with the sense of aesthetic. This is a person who knows if two colors come together, if he likes it or not. He has a very specific taste. So this is not someone who is flexible with what he likes or what he doesn't like. But I do believe that his sense of aesthetic when it comes to women, for example, or his sense of aesthetic when it comes to his decor in his house, homes, are very specific to what he likes. Now I'm going to move on to his ability to deal with relationships, his family. Now, what we have here is someone that also has secret in his own family history. It seems to me that the inside of his house, wherever he's born at, you know, you have two ways to consider home: is the home you come from, the home you build. There's a lot of secrets there. There were secrets already when he was a child. He grew up within secrets, things that people think they see and what is really going on behind closed doors. Even what's going on behind closed doors, some people know about in the family, some don't. And it, for some reason, is around the males in the family. Then the home that he creates them. He has a home, but he doesn't stay there. He's constantly living somewhere else, or he's on the go, or travel and do things. And women, funny enough, are, you know, when sometimes people travel in exotic location and they like to take a souvenir, you know, and they put that in their luggage and they bring it back and they put it in the shelf. It's like a token to where I've been, you know, as I've been there. I've ate the food. I took pictures of that location. I enjoyed my time there. He does something similar with women. Like I said before, he has a sense of aesthetic. He likes women who are exotic, that represent a certain culture or certain types. That is what attracts him. And eventually, based on what I'm seeing here, since he's born in the United States, it is possible that other locations become much more significant where he will stay longer than maybe in the United States. And that's something we'll see if down the road I was correct. But definitely extensive stays in different locations. Doesn't have to be United States and somewhere else. It could be United States and 5, 6 different other locations he goes to. But his total time span elsewhere. And I think personally, based on what I'm feeling from this chart, is I believe this is part of what he needs. He needs the change of scenery, landscape, a different flavor, a different scent. He actually feeds into that. That makes him feel free and not tied up to anything. This is, to me, a man who does not like to be tied up, even somehow, to responsibilities. He will let other people represent him tied up to responsibilities, but he doesn't want to be tied up. And going like this in different locations is a way for him to be free. And it's consistent with the idea that this is a man of opportunities. There's no detailed plans of how he's going to go from point A to point Z. The only plan was to get to Z. It didn't matter how. That's the way the soul engineered this comeback. It was about the Z. We start from A, and we will just get to Z. We don't know how. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't even matter if we're going to jump some letters along the way. We'll get to Z. Versus somebody who is a planner, somebody who orchestrates how they're going to get somewhere, they will say A to Z, and we'll plan all the letters in proper order, and will do their best to stick to the plan. That's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump takes gambles, and he goes with the idea that he's going to win. And the gambling aspect, is very similar in charts and sometimes the idea of speculation. Because a gamble is a bet. With a speculation, you're going to win, and you're going to hit 20 times, 2,000 times the amount you put in there. And he has that archetype of the gambler, particularly in his early part of life. So the first 40 years, 45 years, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of gambling in the money making of Donald Trump. Now, when we look at children, for example, he shows me that he likes little girls, meaning that he favor in his own psyche girls, as long as they are daughters, because he likes to be a father to a daughter. I think that when it comes to son, he preferred to be more like, I'm the wiser, I'm like your father, but it doesn't have the same emotional attachment than when we deal with daughters. And he shows that his having a family is a legacy for him, so that's important. It's part of the social aspect of having people who can do things for him, that have the expertise that he doesn't have, having that social network he can take advantage of. Well, children are exactly the same. They are people that you can utilize to help you. You can ask them to do things for you. They are part of your network, and they must fall in line with you, Donald Trump, being the father figure, but also the leader. So it's very clear to me that he's establishing his leadership very early on with his own children, which is, I will not tolerate a challenge. I will control you. And he does the same thing with his network of people. He has that's the way he's establishing his hierarchy. It's kind of like a lion in the savannah. He comes in and they say, hey, I'm the lion. If you have an issue, you're going to have to fight me. If not, just move over. I'm coming. I'm the boss. It's no different here in the family. It works exactly the same way. So when we look at his marriages, partnership, it was clear that he will have multiple marriages. What is interesting about marriages in Donald Trump is that they can be very good for him. Again, being married is a good thing for him because it gives him an additional push. But he sees marriage as not as we consider marriage in Christian Judaism culture. He sees it as a partnership, but with loose commitment. So the idea of being unfaithful in a marriage is perfectly fine by him. It's part of the, I don't want to be tied up. I want to be able to free to run with my instinct. So if I'm married to you, but I meet a girl that I fancy, or she represents something that I want to explore, I will do it. It's not going to change the fact that we're married, but I am not going to apologize for it. And if you marry this man, you have to understand that. He can marry for social standing, meaning he will look for a woman that makes him look good, that will enhance his taste, where people will say, so the idea of the trophy wife, for example, perfectly fit him. It will be like, see, I can get that kind of woman. It makes me look like the greatest male because I am able to get that kind of woman. There's also the idea that I collect and I show a legacy of ability to gather around me exceptional people. So he's very, the same way he can be very spontaneous about getting involved with somebody, probably having an affair. When it comes to marriage, he's much more picky than that. He will not marry anybody. That person has to meet a certain standard and it has to showcase him in a certain way. But definitely he will have been married more than one time. This is usually a pattern of serial marriage people. So they have like 2, 3, 4, sometimes even more. But it's not a love story. It's not about love. When we look about romance, he can be very loyal to certain of his women in his life, like his daughters, or certain women that he has, like maybe his mother. But it's not about love. Nothing about marriages and even affairs are about love. It has nothing to do with that. This is a man who has fantasies, sexually speaking. He has no problem buying for sex. He doesn't see it as something negative. He sees it as a way to get on whatever he wants. And he will remain discreet about it. There are certain things he likes that probably he doesn't want people to know. But really in his mind is that it's part of what somehow makes him want more. He needs it. He craves it. Of course, when you get older, maybe it's get a little bit more complicated, but the idea is that this is a man who has no issue with, like I said, paying for sex or having special needs in his fantasies and getting it done. And that will imply that this man, as a husband, will have a secret life outside of the marriage. He will have certain secret practices and he will have no issue with that whatsoever, because it will be considered as people who like collecting stamps. It will be a hobby, something that he fantasized. It's all about what he believes he can buy himself into. So the traveling aspect, we already talked about the fact that he liked to spend extensive time outside of his its location of birth. It's again a way to escape some reality. I think that some of his travel also are connected with some of his secret activities, that they are secret business deals, secret affairs, secret everything. And again, I think this is an individual that is very complex privately and doesn't see those complexity as problems. He only sees them as things that he needs and will fulfill. His network of people are connected to his previous life. That means that his close friends, close associates, his family members are possibly, very likely, soulmates connected to his previous incarnation, who were people were either serving him or people were along with him in the same managing situation. When I say was a leader, may have had a title. So the same people somehow are connected to his close circle. So what does it mean? It means that maybe his children or some of his wives, ex-wives, some of his family members, some of his close associates are people that were in the same timeline than his previous incarnation and also connected to the same country, the same location in that other continent. They have some memories in common. I would not be surprised if they may even have some recognition of certain rules that were in place in that previous life, that they accept to play the same roles over again in this lifetime. Which tells me that in his previous life he was definitely ruling, or he was managing a large amount of people, but he had also a very strong handling on some individuals that were already very close-knit spiritually with him, and he's back with those same people. So you're going to say to me, okay, so how does it really work, all this? Well, it means to me that if the reading would have been done when he was a baby, I would have reassured his mother by saying that he will be very successful and that he was by nature someone who will be speculating and make money out of his speculation, buying low, selling high, buying something, developing it and reselling it, things of that nature. Going to college would have been a little bit overkill, probably someone that will have learned from other people, like mentors. If there were such a mentors in the family, then he would have learned from those mentors directly, but very quickly he would have broke away and do his own thing, making his own speculation under his own terms. So very difficult to control a boy like this, less alone a teenager and a young man. You will have to let this man roam free. I would have always said to his mother that as far as his personal life is concerned, he will know how to charm his way to marry several times. But his sense of commitment will be very different than most people. This is somebody who may not be very faithful in general, but who will have that kind of devotees around him that will stay with him. It may include his children, it may include some of his exes. This is what he will feel okay with. The reality is this is a man who probably will travel extensively, stay at places outside of the US extensively. So I would have said to her that. I would have not gone into his intimate life and how he really functions on a psychological level, because I don't think it's up to me to decide that kind of revelation. I mean, it may not be appropriate. But between the two of us, so you know, I can talk to you guys and let you know that this is really what this chart really showed. Sometime certain health issues will come up in charts. In this case, it's more to deal with the fact that this is somebody that can be very temperamental. So it's an indication that he has a brain that has a hard time to focus. As he ages, he will have more and more issues with that. The mind can become very unstable, and that's already kind of showing at this point. But this is something that I would have said, if I was reading to him and he was 25, I would have said, no, pay attention to, as you age, that you may have a lack of focus, having a hard time to stay on par. It's initially part of the personality type, because it has to deal with people who jump on opportunities, because that's the way the brain functions. But when you get older, it can become the sign of a very unstable mind and has a very hard time to focus no matter what the task is. So his mind can become his worst enemy. Temperamental people flip-flop. 1 minute they seem to be fine, and the next day, the next moment they get very angry. So definitely a burst of character that can be sometimes very difficult for people around to deal with. And the fact that as he ages, he will need to be taken care of eventually. This is usually people who can live a long life, unless they, of course, don't watch left and right when they cross the street. But what I mean by that is he could live a long life. The problem is, most likely as he ages, he will need assistance, because I don't think that his mind is going to allow him to stay all together to an advanced age. So ultimately, what is he here to do? Well, he's here to go as high as he can be, as he can do, and to do it in ways that are instinctive and based on speculation. Opportunities that he finds, opportunities are brought up to him. He will hire people. He will ask people that are his acquaintances to step in to do the work for him. And he will continue to play with this money, and he will do a lot of other things that he will not want other people to know. So that he will only show his success that he feels fit into the image he wants to show, and then hide everything else, because it's done in a way that can be controversial. The pain and suffering that everybody has, and we have to learn to just accept it, because there is no answer to that. In his case, has to deal with the fact that being wanted that power, wanted to be on top of the ladder, will require some serious changes at times in his life. And that will become the pain and the suffering, which mean that by the time you reach the top, the implication of what is required to stay is so not destructive, but it can be so difficult to handle, because remember, he doesn't want any ties. So if suddenly he's tied up, he has responsibility, or he has to change his life and adapt his life in order to stay on top of that ladder, this can become very painful, because he will feel like he's changing into something that is not what he is. So I think that overall, this is a very interesting chart, because it gives you a more complex personality description of this man, and how he does what he does and why he does it. And I believe that his speculative is ability to smell the opportunity to make money can be perceived sometime as a psychic ability. Some people will walk into a casino, and I had a client like this, and she will win every time she will go to the slot machine. And I always ask her, well, how do you, I mean, it was not like $20,000, it was, but every time she will earn hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands. And it was no exception. Every time she had a business trip to Vegas, she will earn. And I was always curious. I said, how do you do it? And she said, as long as I was a little girl, I will walk into the slot machine room and I could hear the machines that were ready to give. They will ring something differently in her mind, and she will be able to pick the right machine. And sure enough, she will stay long enough, they will pay. And when I say long enough, she just had to be there for less than an hour and they will pay. And I don't know for you, but you have to ask yourself, what is psychic ability? There's a lot of very interesting psychic abilities out there that most people have not really realized they have them, or they don't know it's a psychic ability. And I think he has that. He has the sense of the gamble. He knows where to find things. And if there is such a thing from the outside to look at it as, Sylvie, he bought a casino and he ended up going bankrupt, I will say it's because of a bad management. It's not because he didn't make money out of those casinos. See, there's a distinction here between the hidden and the visible side of money in Donald Trump. What we think about speculation and what we think about running businesses. If you invest in a condo because you bought it in foreclosure, knowing that it's way under market, and you wait X amount of time, you collect rent in the meantime, and then eventually 7-10 years later you resell it. You speculate and you make money in so many different ways. If you open a business or you buy a business and you make a very good living out of this business, that business pay you for the ability to lease cars, to have nice dinner. For 7 years you're able to live in a very nice house. But the management of the business is badly done by you or by somebody else. And then you realize you cannot pay off, therefore you have to go and foreclose. Then if it's the case, you automatically will say from the outside, oh, it's a business failure. But for the person who has lived that long with all those perks and has been able to have a nice life in the meantime, no, it's not a failure. It is the risk of running a business. And you discharge your business, you close it, you discharge, you don't pay some of your creditors, but you walk away because you have other things you have been speculating with, so it doesn't make any difference because you have your eggs in so many different baskets. And if one basket crash and you only have 2 eggs out of hundreds you've been having in hundreds of baskets, it makes no difference. It's kind of the risk of doing business. It's just a risk. It's not a failure. And I think if there is anything to take out of this, is that our notion of success and failure, right and wrong, what is borderline, maybe morally acceptable or not, is different from our eyes than it is from this person's point of view. Because his needs are what they are. He's here to achieve certain things, and he is going to achieve them. And there is a price to pay to achieve them. You have a personality type, you have a particular body, a particular mind that have needs, and you need to feed that in order to get to the top of that ladder. And so it's a necessity to get it done that way. it's not a choice. It becomes an accepted behavior in order to get ultimately what you need. The end justifies the means you're going to choose to apply. And I think that's what's making him so controversial, because it's a representation of someone in our society that is not a saint and is not a role model as we accept them. This is somebody who wants to be a role model, but he wants to be a role model for the model that he's displaying, that he approved. Everything else he will hide, because that will not fit into the role model type. But for what he's willing to share, that's perfectly fine. So I will tell you some dates where this chart is going to be activated in the future, so we can all look to see how this is going to come together for him. But I will leave you on that thought that maybe we are looking at someone that is a sure bet as far as reaching the top of the ladder in terms of success and how high you can go on the social ladder. But it's a person that is extremely controversial in his choices and on what he needs in order to achieve what he decided to do in his lifetime. So stay tuned. Next we'll do some little prediction on his chart. So I hope you found this analysis, this Karmic Astrology on Donald Trump, interesting and insightful. Of course, there are certain things I didn't go into because I feel that there is a certain amount of privacy that I don't think should be shared on YouTube, but I gave you enough so you can understand the person you see and the person you don't see. And charts get activated on a regular basis, and they have certain influence onto what the person may experience. So in this case, astrology, we're used to have dates, predictions connected with when an event takes place. In my Karmic Astrology, it's more when the person feels it. I usually give the example of somebody who may lose their father but only get to grieve sometime or feel the grief 6 months later. Well, in Karmic Astrology, the influence of that grief will be felt and the timing will be given for 6 months after the actual death of the father. It's a difference between what you will see most often in astrology and what I usually do when I predict things. Now, with Donald Trump, what is interesting about his chart is that I went back a little bit last year because I saw some activation at that time, and I wanted to give context to certain thing I said in our third part of the analysis. And it was around June 2017. So it was at the time where he was really into the situation, even though the situation may have taken place months prior. And they showed that he was really involved in a lot of covered actions, a lot of manipulations behind the scene, things that could have been about you know, his secret affairs or his secret businesses or dealings that he has that he didn't want people to know about. So there were some reason why he was all into a war path at that time, trying to make sure that this was taken care of. And by April 2018, he basically was making sure that either certain things were closed, terminated, not anymore active, or he was making sure that some of his dealings or situations that he didn't want people to know were really no longer findable. So certain things may have been destroyed, certain things may have been erased, certain things may have been concluded, so they're no longer things that are in the active section. Now, those dates have a little bit of flexibility. It's usually more or less 2 months around that time. So we really have a very active period where Donald Trump was really focusing on things that were going on in his hidden life from the early summer part of 2017 to this late spring of 2018. And it seems to me that whatever he needed to get done was done, enough that I don't think that he is too worried about anything else coming out. The next time we have an activation is actually next year, not in 2018 but 2019. We have February, March. Around that time you will see him taking some new steps to show that he's a very responsible leader, that he wants to show he understands what's going on. And I will not be surprised if he decides to put some female agenda of his own to the public. It may translate into putting more women in leadership in his businesses, in his social circle, maybe trying to put some of his females onto the foreplan by giving them more attention, by giving them more lights to their accomplishment. And that would mean ultimately that it's possible he decide to make some changes in terms of his cabinet or in terms of his government, where he will appoint more women and make quite a noise about it, because it's part of a need for him to show his, like I was saying earlier, his sense that he respects women as long as they are intelligent and they respect him. So you will see all that being played at that time. November 2019, we have again more of him on the forefront. Expect him to do a lot of speeches, he will get the attention on him, and he is going to try to promote himself and his businesses, his accomplishment, or any new business he may get involved there, or any kind of new activity at that time. October 2020. You know, people always ask me what I believe is going to happen in the next election, and I think that you need to hear what this chart shows. Only time will tell if there is any truth to it, but I have to respect the chart, so I'm going to go along with what it reveals. So October 2020, remember it's more or less 2 months around that time, so that will include November 2020. He is going to be back on top of the ladder. I again see the winning outcome here, and so any election he will win. And he, at that moment when that happened, will have completed his life purpose, because he will have reached the maximum terms that a president is allowed to run for, and he will join a small club of presidents who have been elected twice. And this will be the manifestation of his of the reason why he incarnated in his lifetime. I expect him to be received with a lot of controversies, either abroad. I do expect a lot of noises from the female clan. I expect a lot of things. It's not going to be quiet. But at the end of the day, if an election is held during that time, it's like a gamble. If somebody says, am I going to win the lottery? in this particular situation? Yes, most likely. January 2021, officially new government, I think, and that will be a very interesting situation because they show that he is going to surprise everybody. He's going to make some very interesting choices and decisions as a leader that are going to surprise people. Unusual decision, unusual pick, something really differently, not from previous patterns. February 2024. Now you are wondering, why is it I'm jumping from 2021 to 2024? It's because there is no activation between those two times. And again, you're going to see how fate is funny that way. 2024, February, he's going to be receiving, he will be negotiating, and he will be at that time dealing with a lot of offers to get involved in new money, new speculation, new businesses, post, obviously, presidential contract, because if he is winning that next election, he will be reaching the end of his mandate. So I do believe that the reason why it's coming through is we may or may not hear about it. He may or may not talk about it. But this will be going on. And by May 2024, you will see him in the public eye a lot to talk about his plans, his future. And in October 2024, I expect him to have everything lined up regarding what he's going to do next. He is not going to go away. He will capitalize, like he has done in the past, onto his accomplishment. And I expect that he will become a very highly paid public figure, public speaker. I expect him to get a lot of endorsements. And so again, this is what you have to understand, is this kind of predictions doesn't care what this person stands for, doesn't care what party he is representing, does not care about what we judge. It's only a question of life path, what the person is here to accomplish. If you paid attention to what I said about his previous life, why he decided to come back in his lifetime, what he was planning to do, how he was seeing how to get to the top of the mountain. And if you understand better the kind of personality and how he functions, then you can see why it is likely that if he were to run for a second time, his chances to win that election are extremely high. And I don't want to say those kind of things cannot be changed. I'm just saying that if you were to get a reading from me, and it was a Karmic Astrology, and I will have brought up that to him on my own, because it would have been part of that reading, and that most likely I would have told him that his chances to become a second-term president were very, very high. So whatever may be my personal opinion, and whatever may be my personal preference, whatever is my ideals, whatever is my belief that this country should have, doesn't play a part here in this analysis. I did my work as a consultant. I gave you all what I believe this man is about. Did I give you everything I could extract from the session? No, but you got 85% of it. you got the next 7 years, 6 years, and time will tell how accurate this particular assessment was, but it is here to stay in the archive of YouTube. So what I will ask you to do is please subscribe, because I will have more of those interesting analyses in the future, and I am planning next to do the Karmic Astrology of Pope Francis. So if you are interested in this man, you definitely want to look forward to that video. And really, if you want to comment, if you have questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I am here to educate on the Karmic Astrology. I'm here to answer if you have questions on my analysis. And I understand not everybody is going to agree with what I do, or in this case, in this analysis, but understand that this is part of why there are many practitioners out there with different way and approach when it comes to astrology. What I want you to take out of this is, I hope, what was a very interesting, insightful portrait of Mr. Donald Trump. So I wish you a great time. Enjoy your life. I send you a lot of blessings, and I will see you soon. We have some other things in the making that have nothing to do with Karmic Astrology. It's all about having fun.